Marvel Studios has a bad habit of overpromising and then under-delivering. We saw that this last year with Fantastic Four being a mid-movie at best. Before that, there was Thunderbolts. Before that, Captain America: Brave New World. The list goes on, and I'm sure I'm not breaking any news when it comes to this sort of thing, but Marvel Studios apparently is doing the exact same thing to the talent in their movies as well. But before we get into all this, if you're new to the channel here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a comment, hit the like button, and share the video because it helps out with the channel. So I got this article from Variety talking about this interview. Kumail Nanjiani signed on for 6 Marvel movies before Eternals. I thought it was my job for the next 10 years, but none of that happened. And yeah, I mean, that's not really unusual for Marvel, where they'll announce that they're going to be doing something, or they'll lead people to believe that they're going to be doing something, and then come to find out that they'll cancel it down the road. Now, they're not as bad as, say, Lucasfilm, where they'll actually announce a movie and announce a cast for it, and then later on cancel that project. At least Marvel Studios won't go so far. At least they don't do it as often as what we've seen with Lucasfilm projects, but still they'll have plans for something down the road, and then they'll actually cancel those projects because they've learned that it probably wouldn't be a good idea after all. Kumail Nanjiani says that he signed on for 6 Marvel movies when he was cast as the superhero Kingo in Marvel Studios' Eternal, but that the film's critical and commercial disappointment shattered him and led him to seek out therapy. Now, there are a lot of reasons as to why Eternals failed at the box office, but one of them I think has to deal with the fact that in the lead up to the release of the movie, all headlines were talking about the LGBTQ representation and other things like that in the movie that's being shoehorned into it. A lot of longtime Marvel fans were saying that they're not going to Marvel movies just to watch LGBT representation. And Kumail Nanjiani actually responded to such criticism by saying that basically they're upsetting the right people with that type of movie, which is the exact opposite of what you should be doing in the promotional aspect of the movie, because you shouldn't be attacking the audience. So if he's complaining about the movie failing, I mean, he kind of, at least in a small part, has himself to blame for that one. The topic came up in Nanjiani's appearance on fellow stand-up comedian Mike Bertigalia's Working It Out podcast. Nanjiani revealed that the Marvel experience is a key subject to his new stand-up special releasing on Hulu later this year. Okay, so then he's talking about how he was doing locked up in COVID. Then it was, he said there was a movie that was supposed to be coming out. Then the movie didn't do too well. And as a result, he had to seek out therapy for that, which honestly, I can understand being disappointed that you were in a movie that you thought was going to do well, that you were proud of, and then the public disagreed with you on that one. I mean, that's not really that unusual, but seeking out therapy, I mean, come on, it's not that big of a deal. You were in a movie. I'm sure you're paid handsomely for your role in that movie. And still, I mean, it didn't do too well. I mean, do you really need to seek out therapy? I mean, look at what we saw with Dakota Johnson or Sydney Sweeney when Madam Web pretty much flopped, even worse than what we saw with Eternals. I mean, they seem to have good spirits about it, and had some humor about it. Like, oh yeah, the movie didn't do too well. It was kind of a crappy movie, wasn't it? But yeah, still, we did our jobs, and that's all we can be expected to do. And you know what? There's something commendable about that when someone pretty much has a self-awareness, or at least takes it in good humor. That like, yeah, I was in a movie that didn't too well. But apparently, Kumail Nanjiani doesn't take it as well as what a couple women do when they're in flops. And then Johnny confirmed that the project was Eternals, explaining that he thought he would be much more involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was like, oh, this is going to be my job for the next 10 years. And Johnny continued, I signed on for 6 movies. I signed on for a video game. I signed on for theme park ride. They make you sign up for all this stuff. And you're like, this is the next 10 years of my life. So I'll be doing Marvel movies every year. And in between, I'll do my own little things, whatever I want to do. And then none of that happened. Now, this, I think a lot of this just stems from him not understanding how the industry works, which seems kind of strange because he's someone who works in the Hollywood industry. But just because they're making you sign on to all this other stuff doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually going to follow through with it. I mean, I thought that's pretty common knowledge, but apparently he didn't know that. And just because you were signing on for multiple movies doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually going to be starring in multiple movies or have a significant part. I mean, you could just have a 30-second cameo and that would count as one of the 6 movies that you were involved with. So it really does feel like he just kind of had unrealistic expectations on what's to follow. And of course, a lot of this ultimately is determined by the success of the individual movie that you're in. But it really does seem like to me that he's someone who doesn't get a whole lot of work. So when he had something like this kind of fall into his lap, he felt like, okay, this is my big shot right now, because even though he is kind of known amongst certain circles, he's not a household name or anything like that. And it feels like he thought that this was going to be his big break within the entertainment industry, and it really just didn't materialize. And that's why he's so disappointed about it. Eternals released in November 2021 and was the most reviewed Marvel Cinematic Universe entry up to that point. It grossed $402 million globally, which was seen as a theatrical disappointment for a $200 million budgeted franchise entry from the blockbuster banner like Marvel Studios. And yeah, that's because when you factor in marketing costs and how much the theaters actually take from the box office revenue, the studio probably needed to make around $600 million in order to break even, and $402 million is pretty far from that. Since then, Nanjiani's Kingo and his fellow Eternal heroes haven't featured in another live-action Marvel project. Marvel is currently gearing up for the team-up Avengers Doomsday in 2026, which will bring together characters from across various projects. However, no Eternals cast members have been revealed to be part of the film's ensemble thus far. And that's really the funniest thing about all of this, is just the fact that Eternals is almost kind of retconned out of existence, because just from the start, I mean, it was kind of separated from the rest of the MCU besides some callbacks and references. I mean, it could have been treated as its standalone film. And that's kind of what they're doing. Marvel is basically just brushing it under the rug. It's like, is it part of the MCU? And yeah, to an extent. I mean, they did reference the Celestial in Captain America Brave New World, so there is some relevance to the rest of the MCU when it comes to Eternals. But as far as the characters, they're pretty much treating it as if this movie is a mulligan and not really acknowledging that it existed. And that's really what it is for it. Maybe he's upset because that's how Marvel is treating the project. That's something that apparently he was personally invested in. But this is just kind of normal for the industry. But I think it's also an indicator as to why a lot of some of the more seasoned actors aren't really signing up for Marvel projects, or at least not joining Marvel projects like they used to in the early days of the MCU, because you do get this where they're making people sign on for multiple picture deals. And I think there's a lot of actors out there who don't necessarily want to be bogged down by having to be in multiple movies, because a lot of the contract terms basically say when you're in a Marvel movie, you could be filming something else, and if we call you back, you have to drop what you're doing and come back and film with us. And a lot of actors don't like having to endure that sort of thing. So as time has gone on, a lot of people are not willing to actually join the MCU as a result of all this. So Marvel is starting to bring in more fresh-faced actors, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not going to be that box office draw that they're hoping for. Quentin Tarantino, I think, said it best, where the star isn't necessarily the individual playing in the movie. The star is the character. But unfortunately, when it comes to something like Eternals, none of the characters were actually star characters. They're a bunch of side characters that the general public didn't care about. They're making a movie pushing a message that the general public has vehemently rejected numerous times over the years. And then you have actors who are attacking the fans. So when you add all that up, I mean, it's just no wonder that this movie was a failure. The only thing that's actually crazy about it is the fact that it wasn't as big of a failure as it probably could have been. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a comment and hit the like button too, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.